Now, a lot of my work in my career has been more run and gun work. You don't have all the resources in the world. You have to have minimal kit or not that much kit. You don't have a gigantic crew. But just because something's run and gun doesn't mean you get the pass to ignore one of the most important steps in the process of making a film, documentary, or commercial. And that's going to be pre-production. Now, today's sponsor, Artlist, we are going to teach you how to make an art board. This is going to use a variety of tools that Artlist offers in order for you to send to your clients and also help prepare for a shoot that you have at hand. We're going to talk about getting music references, some video references as well, and a couple of etiquette things as well when you're using some of these new AI tools in order to be an assistant to help you create your next project instead of trying to use it to create the entire project itself. But well, we'll get there. Now, I am going to give you a little bit of a job description because we are going to shoot a lot of this content in MOS, but I'm still going to talk about finding your music first for your next project. One of the things that happens, especially when you're working on client projects, is you get that one message that says, everything looks great, but can you change the music? Which may as well come with a trigger warning because that drives everybody absolutely insane. Now, clearly Artlist has a lot of royalty sound and as well as sound effects as well, but one thing that I would encourage, one thing I highly recommend is try to find that music first and make the visuals match up. Now I'm going to go over to my artboard. This is a client shoot that I'm working on. This is a guy I have on Sunday, and I haven't really made the artboard yet, so we're kind of doing things from scratch. But what you'll notice here when I put the description of commercial for a high-end health club, which is kind of an accurate description if you've ever been to a Movati gym before, it's going to give you a couple of suggested assets. Down here, we're going to start off with music because this is where you can go really right or you can go really wrong. Now, it did spit out a couple of different playlists that you can choose from, and you could choose to just save all of these to your artboards, or you can give it a listen to figure out which one you're going to like. Not that at all. So right away you can tell energetic gym anthem, probably not going to be the vibe of the shoot that I'm going for. I kind of have a moodier style and I have a lot of high action and stuff going on as well. So I'm going to see if maybe I can get to like, let's see. That's not bad. That would be kind of okay, a little bit closer. Again, this process I'd rather do on the front end than the back end, but I think also we're just gonna go with a classic. And with that, there's also a good and bad way of doing this. You could have a song that sounds really good, but it just doesn't necessarily fit the footage that you're looking for. A couple months ago, I did shoot an interview for a documentary that I was working on. It was supposed to be a little bit gritty, a little bit more emotional, and I'm gonna show you two examples of music that might work really well, and also an example that doesn't.
Well, I'll tell you, like I used to get bullied like a lot. Like I wasn't like your average popular kid. I was short, about 4'9", big curly hair, and I got picked on a lot, and I was that kid, like I was like a class clown. That's why I think I fell more in love with acting and character work because of what Jim Carrey said, and that's why he's like one of my favorite actors, because he was exactly that. So when I started doing all this stuff with Disney, then the bullying started changing. Everyone was always like, "Oh, that's my boy Mike, that's my boy Mike," and I'm like, you were just picking on me like 2 days ago and now you're my boy, you know? So it was, that dynamic changed of like, oh, now he's like a somebody. Well, I'll tell you, like I used to get bullied like a lot. Like I wasn't like your average popular kid. I was short, about 4'9", big curly hair, and I got picked on a lot, and I was that kid, like I was like a class clown. That's why I think I fell more in love with acting and character work because of what Jim Carrey said, and that's why he's like one of my favorite actors, because he was exactly that. So when I started doing all this stuff with Disney, then the bullying started changing. Everyone was always like, "Oh, that's my boy Mike, that's my boy Mike," and I'm like, you were just picking on me like 2 days ago and now you're my boy, you know? So it was, that dynamic changed of like, oh, now he's like a somebody.
Now, for me personally, the job that I'm going to be doing on Sunday, I'm going to be the cinematographer, and the job actually is to get assets and media assets for this larger high-end gym to be able to use for their own marketing. So I don't touch anything in post, although I will give certain suggestions that are going to be in that artboard to give an idea of how I'm going to approach the shoot. But that being said, the most important thing that I'm going to have to do to translate over to clients is going to be the visual references. Now, when I was coming up and I didn't have all the resources in the world, getting a bunch of different sites in order to get stock frame grabs from different movies and different commercials, they're paid subscriptions for me. I didn't want to necessarily have to buy all of them to try my luck in finding what I needed. So what I did use is I had one Artlist membership, and honestly, I just used the stock footage. Okay, so we're back in our artboard again, and what we're gonna do is we're actually on the footage tab already, and that way I can look through some of the stock footage that I can either just save and put onto my artboard, or I could clip up, I could put into an organizational system, and that way I have some screen grabs because that's a lot cheaper than me getting things like shock deck and frame set at the same time. It could add up quite a bit, but we're gonna go over to here. The gym is more commercial. It's not more like this kind of style, although I really like this a lot. I'm gonna go over here, see what I could find. Fitness gym, treadmill, running. It has a lot of natural light. It's bright, it's airy, it's very commercial. And what I can do is I can scroll through some of this footage and I can see what might be applicable to my artboard. So for example, I think the closest that's going to match up the gym that I'm gonna go to is probably around somewhere around here. It is gonna be on a Sunday night. Now that I can go into here, I can go here, press a little plus button, add it to my artboard, and I could use that as sort of giving a vibe in terms of the tones and what I want from the footage. Now I'm gonna go over here because you could actually find more stock footage based on the artist that you're looking for. There's a couple of assets I'm gonna add over here. I'm gonna add this to the artboard. That makes a lot of sense, specifically what we're gonna be doing in the gym. Now, the thing with this, guy, is that there might be exercises or moods or different shots that I don't necessarily see on this stock footage list. This will give me a pretty good idea. I just kind of picked this one at random, but even if I go back a little bit, go back to that commercial gym look, even if I go somewhere right here, I still might not find exactly what I'm looking for. And this is where you might want to use another tool that Artlist has in order to help fill in some of the gaps that you might have by using the AI generative image and video software. Even when I type in some of the gym stock footage that I'm looking for, sometimes there might be something that's missing. For example, if I want a certain aesthetic of the gym or I want a certain movement that I can't quite find in the stock footage, this is where we're going to use some of the generative AI tools that Artlist has. Particularly, I like using the images because it helps turn over a little bit quicker, but you can animate these guys as well. Now, before I continue in showing this tool, I do want to talk about one thing, which seems to be a point of contention for a lot of people, and also it's something that needs to be addressed. Now, with the inception of AI and people being able to generate video or images or create things and try to pass them off as artwork, one thing I am going to say is not myself nor Artlist as condoning or encouraging using some of these generative AI tools in order to replace finished works or finished arts or take jobs away from creators. The way that I want to use some of these tools is more as an assistive tool versus something that's going to be generative. You guys are the one clicking the buttons here. And if you're going to use something that's a tool that's going to be nefarious or ill-intended in order to take away from this industry, not only is that a personal unwise decision, but at the same time, you're tearing down a lot of jobs from other people. Like I mentioned before, there's going to be some etiquette that you're going to use. For one, if you are going to be using AI into your finished works, it makes a lot of sense to disclose it. In fact, if you're posting things onto YouTube, there's a little tab that you're supposed to actually click off. What I want to show you here is to be able to fill in the gaps that you might need in your artboards in order to show clients, so that way they have a better concept of what you actually need to do for their shoot. Because sometimes when I don't necessarily accurately explain what I want to do on a shoot, I've lost gigs before, and I don't want to do that. So I want to use this as an assistive tool, but not pass this off as a finished work. I hope we're on the same page here. If my influence does anything, it's telling you not to use AI to try to destroy this industry. All right, so we're gonna go back to home base. We're at the Movati gym shoot, have some music assets here, although I am shooting MOS, which means I don't have any sound that's gonna go on, but I still wanted to get kind of a vibe of what it is for my client. We have a couple of footage here, some stock clips on this side, which you can find in the stock footage, and then we're gonna go try the AI image and video. Now, you can find this particular image in this prompt, but I just want to do this for the sake of actually demonstrating how you could use this to add to your artboard. Now, I already have my prompt here, and it's just an image of a female 5'8" athletic build doing sprints on an assault air runner treadmill, which would be those kind of things that are kind of crescent shaped and they don't necessarily work the same way original treadmills do. However, if I want to make this sound a lot better, I'm going to go over to enhance, and basically what it's going to do is it's going to run that through AI and give you a much better description of what I'm looking for. I'm not reading all of that, and neither will you. But what I want to do is make sure that we're shooting in 16:9 because that's one of the deliverables we have. And I'm also going to make sure I have 3 images so that way I could add it to my artboard so we could have a couple of different angles. And if you can look through my creations, I've used this a bunch of times for a variety of different projects. This is actually from the Lumix project we just worked on. And as you guys can tell, like if I'm opening this guy up, I'm probably not going to use that in a commercial project. But what it's going to do is give me a really good representation of where the lighting is coming from, which these images did when I put in the prompts in order to get the things that I needed for the shoot. Now we're going to scroll back up on here. We're going to check on where we're at. And like, again, This is what I mean by using AI as an assistive tool and not a generative one, because I don't think anyone is going to put that on their ads. However, this, if I save this to my artboard, I'm going to put it right here, Bovati Gym Shoot. When I want to send one of these images to my client so they have an idea of what I'm going for in terms of my angles, in terms of how I want the shot to go, even down to where the lighting's going to be, albeit we are going to be shooting at night, this is going to help out quite a bit. Now we could try another one. Again, I'm just going to put a tall 6'2", I don't know, black male doing Pilates in black compression wear in a evenly lit room. Did not sound the best. Gonna go to my little enhance over here. We also have that talent with that description as well. And also there's a Pilates room in the gym. Generate 360, and then we're gonna give it a second. That's kind of what I expected. Probably also wouldn't put this in a finished project. But essentially that would give you some of the ideas in terms of what we're doing. If I knew anything about the Pilates exercise, which I'm gonna find out on the day, I could be more specific in terms of what I actually want. But this gives you an idea of what a Pilates room actually looks like. Some of these you could actually find while using the stock footage. You might not have to do this, but to fill in some of those gaps, this comes in handy. In fact, I did use a combination of AI generated images as well as stock footage to do the Trish Stratus shoot on the Ursa 12K just a few months ago, although that was in February. Essentially what that did was give me the ability to use a combination of things so that way my client, who was not only paying a lot of money for Trish to be there, but also at the same time gave a really accurate depiction of what we were looking for. Now, once you collected the assets that you need, you could add everything into that artboard that we mentioned before, and then it's as simple as just sending that link to your clients or other people on your crew so that we have an idea of how the plan is going to go on the shoot day. This is something that I've used quite a lot, especially being able to communicate these things over to clients. Sometimes I actually port a lot of these assets over into Milanote, and I create an entire structured board that I can use, put it on my iPad, and that way I keep it in my back pocket whenever we're on a shoot, especially because I could just check off the shots that I need as we go, because the nature of this job is mostly image capture rather than a narrative commercial film. Now, speaking of that, you might want to run over to Artlist, start up your artboard, and then start shooting tomorrow. But one thing I also want to say is that if you have more time, spend a little bit more time planning. Rummage through some of the stock footage that's going to be there. You might find a shot or a lighting setup that you want to replicate that you didn't necessarily know before. I get it. If it's a job, it's a little bit different. But if you're working on something for yourself, you're working on your film, you're working on a documentary, take a little bit more of your time. One of the reasons why a lot of the projects that I started and didn't finish because my planning was a little bit off. But another thing that I didn't keep in mind was I was trying to rush it out because I really needed to show the world that I'm a real filmmaker. And one thing that I want to say is that you don't necessarily want to take shortcuts. You don't want to use the robot aliens to try to make up finished work for you. You don't want to try to rush and turn over things too quickly because you might miss a step. But also at the end of the day, if bills need to be paid, you need to have a run and gun shoot done, and they want to plan it within 72 hours like mine, Artlist can help you with a lot of the tools that they have. That being said, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Special shout out to Artlist for sponsoring this video. And also, this is more about pre-production. There's other tools that you might want to use in post. If you guys want to see a video about that, leave a comment in the description down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.